Good evening, viewers. This is the sixth chapter of Valmiki Ramayana. It deals with the birth of monkey cheese in India. Brahma now instructed the gods to manifest part of themselves as monkeys and bears. They were to be capable of assuming any form at will in order to help Vishnu in his descent as Sri Rama in his war against Ravana. The gods descended on earth as part manifestation of monkeys. Thus, Indra's son was Vali, the ruler of the monkeys. The sun god's son was Sugriva. Brihaspati's son was Tara. Kubera's son was Gandhamadana. Nala was Vishwakarma's son. The fire god's son was Nida. Ashwini Kumar's son were Mainda and Divira, and Varuna's son was Sushena. Parjanya's son was Sarabha, and of course Vayu's son was the great Hanuman. All the monkeys were valiant. They had gigantic bodies. The bears, the monkeys, and the long-tailed monkeys, especially those whose tails resembled that of a cow, saw the light of day in no time. Those monkeys with long tails were endowed with great power. All of them were strong. They had claws and teeth for their weapons and knew how to use their weapons. They could shake great mountains and root out trees. They could agitate the sea, the rivers, and leap across vast oceans. They proved to be great military generals in later years. Many of them lived on the peaks of Mount Vrikshavan, and they flocked around Sugriva and Vali. They were skilled in warfare. They knew how to use their weapons. They waited for Rama to come. Meanwhile, in Ayodhya, Dasharatha had concluded the Ashwamedha Yaga and the Putrakameshti Yaga. The king proceeded back to the capital accompanied by his wives, servants, army, and vehicles. The guest kings too returned to their countries, and the feudatories also returned to their areas. Vishwamitra and his wife also left for Anga. The king now eagerly waited for the birth of his sons. On the 9th month, lunar day of the bright fortnight of the month of Chitra, Rama was born to Kausalya under the star Punarvasu. Bharata was born to Kaikeyi. Sumitra had Lakshmana and Shatrughna. Kettle drums were sounded everywhere, welcoming the birth of all the four sons. There was great rejoicing everywhere. Streets were decorated with columns. Festoons were hung. Bright-colored clothed ladies walked across the street. Music was played. The king bestowed presents to the ballad singers, bards, panegyrists. He gave away clothes to the richest and the cows and gold to Brahmins. He performed the Namakarna ceremonies, and Vasishtha named them Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna. From time to time, Vasishtha performed all ceremonies from Jatakarna to Upanayana. The children studied in his Gurukula. They learned the Vedas, the Upavedas, Upanishads, archery, and all other skills. When they completed their studies, the king contemplated about their marriage. Even while they were deliberating on the subject, Vishwamitra entered the palace. The king rose to welcome him. He offered him water to wash his hands and legs. The sage inquired after the king's health and governance. Soon after, Dasharatha asked the reason for the sage's visit after the niceties were over. Vishwamitra seeks Rama's help to deal with Rakshasas. Vishwamitra was happy at the welcome he received and the voluntary promise of help even before learning and knowing or asking for it. Vishwamitra wanted to perform a sacrifice. He contemplated on the disturbances caused by the two Rakshasas. They were Maricha and Subahu. These two threw volumes of flesh and blood dropped from the air on the sacrificial altar. Vishwamitra was distressed. All these happenings had irritated him, and therefore he came straight to the king Dasharatha to get his help. He could not give vent to his feelings, as such was the character of the sacrifice. He therefore sought Dasharatha's help. He thought Dasharatha could send his oldest son, Rama, to help look after the area while he performed the sacrifices. He would not confer Rama many boons by which he would confer on Rama many boons by which he will obtain fame in all the three worlds. Rama, being formidable warrior, would be able to overcome the Rakshasas. Furthermore, no other than Rama could kill the wicked ogres. He requested Dasharatha not to allow love or affection to come in between his duty. He asked Dasharatha to seek the advice of Vasishtha to allow with regard to his request. He wanted Dasharatha to lend Rama for a period of 10 days and nights only in the interest of the sacrifice. Vishwamitra sat silent after some time and was waiting for a positive reply. On hearing this, the emperor trembled. He fainted. When he regained his consciousness, he was sad. He looked wan. He feared for his son. He feared he might be killed. He did not like the idea of letting Rama go as he was fond of him. It agonized his heart and mind. He fell down unconscious from his seat. He remained unconscious for an hour. When he regained consciousness, he saw that Rama was less than 16 years old. He therefore could not perceive his capacity to fight the Rakshasas. Instead, he would send his army. He himself would come with his army. Rama cannot do much. Dasharatha promised to guard the sacrifice against Maricha and Subahu. Hearing this, Vishwamitra's anger knew no bounds. He was furious. He asked the king how he could go back on his word of honor. The breach of promise was unworthy of the dynasty of Raghu. It would ruin the race. The whole world shook as Vishwamitra became angrier. His eyes spit fire. It was there that Vasishtha tried to lessen the tension. He rose up and addressed to the king. He advised the king not to go back on his word of honor. It was unrighteous to break one's promise. He must send Rama with Vishwamitra. He was a safe person and he was a Brahma Rishi. Rama would be able to kill the Rakshasas. Vishwamitra would be able to protect Rama. He knew the use of different weapons and missiles. These missiles were born as pious sons of Krisasva. They were gifted to Vishwamitra, who was the son of Gadi. He was a righteous man and would do no wrong or harm to anyone. He further advised Dasharatha not to doubt Vishwamitra's capacity, though capable of punishing the Rakshasas himself. He wanted to do some good for Rama. Vasishtha's soft and cajoling voice calmed the mind of Dasharatha. He mentally acquiesced in the act of sending Rama in order to placate Vishwamitra. Thank you.